Welcome to everybody. So as we said, this session is about regular expressions and how we're going to use regular expression to do text searches and describe text patterns. Also, we're going to visit some websites or useful resources where you can train on regular expression and test, maybe learn about regular expressions. Let's first start with a list of text, and I'm going to open a file named, I'm going to say text, and I'm going to split the screen. So on the left side, we have the Python code, and on the right side, we have the text. Some text we're going to just type in and describe. On the left side, we're going to test our regular expressions. So what's a regular expression? Basically, it is a way to describe patterns in text. For example, you want to search some text with a specific format, then the tool you can use regular expression to describe these families of patterns. Let's first say one of the practical ways regular expressions are used is, for example, when you go on a website and you try to sign up, the usernames, there are certain characters that are not allowed. Or, for example, you want to type in the email address on the sign up page of a website, there are controls that prevent typing wrong email addresses. Also, when you type in password, certain website on a website, they can require a, for the password to be of a certain length. And they also require, let's say, something like at least one digit numbers, one letters, or one special characters. So these are some useful reasons, let's say, some practical ways of using regular expression, and they are also used uh, with web crawlers. You want to extract text from web pages or analyze or sanitize some data. So you just want to read some part of the text and remove certain characters or certain things from a text. So you can use regular expressions to do that very easily. Let's start by defining, by typing a text. For example, we're gonna test, let's say we have a website and we require the user to enter their username. For example, I'm gonna say the user will enter the username and we're going to validate that username. Also, the user will enter the password and we're going to prompt the user to enter, for example, the email address or the phone number. One of the requirements for a user is, this is not a text file. I'm going to change the extension. Okay. So you can type in the requirements. You can say what is required for a username to be valid. So we can say we don't want something like @ special characters. We want the username to be made of with letters, underscore, and digit numbers. And we don't want spaces in the username. So in order for a username to be valid, first there can be letters, numbers. These are the criteria, no space. So we have the spaces and no special character. So that's one for the username. And for a password, we want the password to be for of a certain length. Let's say the password should be at least 8 character, so 8 character long, at least 8 character long. And we want to have digit numbers, so must contain a digit, at least 1 digit, must contain at least we're gonna say at least one special character. So a special character can be like a star sign, a dollar sign, a comma, or a colon. So these are the criteria for a password to be considered safe enough. And the next step is for the email. So the email address is made of 2 parts. The first section is we have the @ in the email address, and we also have the domain for that email address. So the email address should be, for example, let's say, I think it's easier to give an example, something like that. Example dot, let's say I'm gonna say something at domain dot extension, for example. So it could be .com, .net, or .something. So this is the different part of an email address. And the name or the username that came before the email, the @ we can define criteria for that. We can say um, we don't want underscores or special characters. We don't want things like um, spaces in that part. So it is made of, we can say something like it's made of letters, digits, no special character. We don't want the user to type in special characters, no white space, and we don't want the user to type in something too long. For example, we can add a length constraint. So we can say the length for that something part should be at least at least let's say 3 character long, and at most let's say 50 or 10 character long. So this is the criteria for the something part. And the domain, for the domain, we're going to add some criteria. We can add as many criteria as we want. Then we're going to express that in regular expressions. So for the domain, for the domain part, we have um, it has to be made of letters, so letters only. So no space, no special characters, only letters. And that's it for the moment. The extension, so the domain extension, we list the valid domain extension. A domain extension like .com, .net, at max, we can say it is made of letters, at least at least 2 character long, and at most 3 character long. So this is our criteria for the domain extension in the email address. What else for the phone number? So the phone number depend on the country where you can be, but let's say a phone number is made of let's say digits. So we only have numbers in, we have digits, can contain hyphens, hyphens, and at least, we can say at least 5 character long for us to consider it to be a valid phone number, and at most, let's say 15 character long. And we do not accept spaces, no spaces, or no white spaces. We can add as many other criteria as we want, but basically the system that we supposedly design um, may validate the user data, the provided data with these criteria. So it's time for us uh, to define the patterns, to describe these criteria using um, regular expressions. Now for the username, I'm going to go in the left side where we can type in code. I'm going to just add a command. Now for the username, we can give some examples. So example of valid user names. So valid example. So these are some examples. For example, this um, hello good man, hello good. This is a valid. We can consider that as a valid username. Something like DK6. This is a valid username. Maybe we can say that also is a valid username because um, I'm going to change the criteria a bit here. I'm going to say can contain an underscore. Okay, can contain an underscore, but cannot, but should not start with an underscore. So this is two other criteria we added here. Username can contain an underscore, but should not start with an underscore. Now, for example, for invalid usernames, I'm just going to give some examples. Um, for example, a username that starts with an underscore is not a valid username according to the criteria we just defined here. I'm going to type in my good or my godness. Yes, something like that. This is not a valid username. Maybe we can type also something like we add in some special characters. Special characters, it depends. So if you type in a, an @ sign, then we consider that we being an invalid username. We can add more other examples. Now the pattern, how to describe this thing. So first of all, a strings is first, um, before we start typing the criteria, we have to understand certain things. Um, we have to understand that a string is made of characters. So we first have characters, and characters can be letters, numbers, or special characters. In our case, I'm going to break these things down. We have characters, it is made of characters. Then when you break it down in these characters, you can have numbers and letters. Numbers or letters. You can say that numbers or letters. Or maybe it can contain something like an underscore. Underscore. Now, no special character. So there shouldn't be no special character. And we have another constraint where it says no space. So we have numbers, letters, underscores, no space. The last one, it says should not start with an underscore. So here we're going to add this constraint also, must not start with an underscore. We know the character set, numbers, letters, underscore. And now we look at the length constraint. Here we don't have any length constraints. And what else? After that, we look at positions where these characters can be placed. In this case, the underscore cannot be at the start of the string. So I'm going to type in the pattern. The pattern would be numbers. So for the numbers, these are digits. A number can be 0 to 9, or letters. So the letters A to Z, or A to Z, we're going to explain. And or we can have underscores. So there are some special notations. These represent a set. So a set of characters. The square brackets, the opening square bracket, and the closing square bracket. Inside a set, you can specify what are the characters uh, you want at a specific position, or um, you can also exclude a specific set using this square bracket notation. So in this case, we we're saying that we have one character at this position that can be a number, an uppercase letter, a lowercase letter, or an underscore. So this is the character set, and we're going to multiply. For now, for the username, we did not add a length constraint. So I'm going to add something like at least 4 character length, and at most, let's say 20 character length. So we choose the character set, and it's time to add the constraint should not start with an underscore. Should not start with an underscore. That means the character at the beginning should not be an underscore. So it can be any character, but should not be an underscore. I'm going to simplify this thing a bit, then we're going to test and explain this condition later. So we have at least 4 character length. So I'm going to say, okay, at least 4 character length and 20. At max, 20 character length. So we said, okay, this is a character, the character part. This is a character that can be a number, a letter, uppercase letter, lowercase letter, or an underscore. And we're going to multiply. So these patterns can be repeated 4 times at least, and at max 20 times. Now, the condition for should not start with an underscore, we can add that there is what we call negation. So at the beginning of the string, you can have, we can exclude the underscore. Let's say, we can say we don't want the underscore to be parts or to start. We don't want the string to start with an underscore. So this is how one of the ways we can specify that in a set. But that also is not safe. We excluded the underscore character, but we did not exclude any other. Um, uh, it gives the possibility to add all other things. But let's keep it that way first. Now this small sign, I don't know the name yet. It represents the beginning of a string. And we also have another special regular expression character that represents the end of a string. So the $sign. Let's test this thing if it's work with the descriptions we just gave here. Yeah, thank you. So the small sign name is caret. caret, yes, caret. So the caret sign represents, meaning that the string should start with this pattern, and the dollar sign means the string must end with this pattern. So basically, it's like we said, if we say something like, it's like we have a character. We say character. So I'm going to change it a bit like that. Character, and we have another character, and this other character, we repeat it. So that's the repetition sign, and we say it start with an character, and it ends with also characters. And we describe the sets of characters or the set of symbols this character takes its value from. This is the 0, 9, and 0 to 9, A to Z, and A to Z underscore. Also, this character here, we specify the set from which it takes its value. So we said it can be any character but the underscore. So you have this pattern where you have different sections in your pattern, and each section you give it a description. So basically it is like that. Uh, Now let's test that. For the test, I'm going to input a library, the regular expression library module. So import regular expression, RE. So here we imported the regular expression library, and now we can test on strings. So I'm gonna say user name equal good man. Also, I'm going to have a look to this in the syntax. So for Python, we have some method or some functions we can use. Um, just a minute. So we have this thing called search. So we pass in, we say regular expression, search, then we pass in the pattern string. And the pattern string is, if we remember, the pattern string is that thing. So I'm gonna copy that and type in the pattern, and then I'm going to type in user name. We can even turn this thing into a function to make things more easier. So I'm going to say define validate username. Then you pass in the username. So if the username is valid, this function returns true. If not, it returns false. I'm just going to copy that. So the search function, as described here, it scans through string looking for a match to the pattern returning a match object, or none if no match was found. So this function will return a match object. If there is a match, then we return true, meaning that if is not none, uh, we return true, else we return false. I think we can simplify this thing. Match is not none. So if match is not none, then that means the username is valid. Let's test this if it works. If valid, validate, so we call the validate function, validate username. We pass in the username, good man. Then we print username is valid. Else we print this message, username is not valid. Okay, let's run this program and see if different test cases may work. I'm going to open the terminal and I'm going to make it executable. So we change the mode to executable file, and let's say we're also going to add the shebang tag. Okay, then let's run. What is going to be displayed? It says bad interpreter. On my environment there is Python 3.9. So let's run this code again. Oh, it is Python 3. Oh, true.
Wow,